Hello everyone and welcome back to part 3 of my top favorite watercolor colors. Today we are going to be looking at 12 more colors ranging from useful greens to earth yellows and mid-valued browns. If you missed parts 1 and 2, pause this video, watch those first, then join us back here to continue through the list. The first video will explain the setup for this series, how I'm painting all the swatches, and all that other fun stuff. Be sure to subscribe to be notified when the last video in this series comes out as well. We are tipping over the halfway point in this series, so let's dive right back into some of my favorite watercolors. I'm sure that the vast majority of you knew that Perylene Green PBK 31 would be on this list, and this version is from Vinci. Similarly to Indanthrene Blue in the last video, I didn't really think I had a preference on the brand for this color, but as it turns out, I do. It's Vinci. Vinci's version is more saturated than the versions that I have from Daniel Smith, Winsor Newton, and Schmincke. But since I didn't have a perceived favorite until I sat down for this video, if you have any of the others, they will work just fine. I use this color all the time for mixing other greens and dark hues. It mixes perfect blacks with most reds and deep violets, and it turns any blue or green into a dark, moody version of itself. I did warn you at the beginning of this series that I like convenience greens, right? Because here are a couple more to add to the several I showed off in the last video. For a granulating sap green, I am happy to use either Undersea Green from Daniel Smith or Aquarius Green from Szmal interchangeably. Both are stunning and it's very hard to tell them apart. Daniel Smith's Undersea Green was originally made with ultramarine blue and quinacridone gold. When P049 was discontinued, they reformulated it to use their new quinacridone gold hue. However, now that P048 has been discontinued, I'm not sure where the formula will go from here. However, as far as I know, Daniel Smith does have a decent supply of P048 to keep it consistent for a while longer. Regardless, Aquarius Green does not use P048, so I don't expect a formula change there, and it's a perfect dupe. Finally, for our last convenience green, we have Denise's green from Vinci, made from PY 129 and PP 60. This is my version of a non-granulating sap green. It is lush and vibrant without being too unnatural, and it makes for a great base green to work off of mixing other greens. You can adjust it one way or another to mix a range of greens that lean more blue or yellow in your work, and it also neutralizes well with reds to make an array of browns. I always debate whether or not to put PY 129 with my yellows or greens on a palette. Azo Green from Graham or Green Gold from Vinci is the color that I use for my cool yellow these days. It is transparent and earthy and sits in this in-between space between the yellows and greens, excelling at mixing a wide spectrum of greens when you mix it with literally any blue or even single pigment greens. While the swatch finishes up, let me get a head start on our next color, Quinacridone Gold. The version that I'm including on this list is by Sennelier, made from PR 206, PR 101, and PY 150. I very specifically didn't include the original P049 on this list as I wanted it to be as inclusive as possible for you purchasing paints today. However, from what I've heard, unfortunately, PR 206 is also or going to be discontinued alongside P048. I tried to reach out to Sennelier before writing this video to ask if there would be a formula change, but I haven't received a reply yet, so I'm not sure. At the time of recording this is the closest hue that I have seen that is also easily accessible in the United States. However, if you have access to White Nights as well and don't mind a full pan instead of tube colors, White Nights Indian Gold is the actual closest hue to the original P049 that I have seen. In any case, Quinacridone Gold serves not only as an earth tone, but also as my warm yellow on the palette. If you remember back to the very first video in this series, I only had one primary yellow on the palette, so it may have taken a while, but we eventually caught up with the warm and cool yellows on this palette. They're just down here with the earth tones. So it's time to move on to our proper earth pigments. If you, like me, love earth tones, stay tuned because I have some really gorgeous odd ducks that I don't often see on other watercolor favorites lists. And if you, unlike me, don't love earth tones, maybe some of these gorgeous odd ducks will win you over. Let's see. First up is Naples Yellow Deep PBR 24 by Stoneground, or the color of the same name from Da Vinci, though their version has an added PY 53 in it. This is an opaque, lightly valued earth yellow. In addition to being usable straight from the pan, I also like how it mixes with reds for paler skin tones, with purples to mix soft grays, and with blues and greens to make pastel greens without the use of a white pigment. Previously, you might have expected to see me fill this spot with yellow ochre, specifically from Daniel Smith, but between the Naples Yellow Deep and this gold ochre PY42 from Winsor Newton, I don't find myself reaching for yellow ochre very much these days. That just goes to show you that even your favorites can be replaced. Sorry, yellow ochre. Da Vinci also has a great version of this color. It has the same name and a similar hue, but their version adds a PY83 to it as well. Raw siennas are some of my go-tos for light browns, and Raw Sienna Warm Shade PBR7 by Stoneground sits at the top of that list. It's such a beautifully warm brown that glazes and softens off well. As a Canadian handmade paint company, if Stoneground isn't easily available for you to acquire, I can recommend Da Vinci's version as well, and most brands have a decent version of this color too. I just love how warm and inviting Stoneground's version is in particular. Now we can dive into some of the more niche colors here. Spinel Brown PY119 from Schmincke is a gorgeous light to mid-valued opaque brown. The hue is somewhat similar to raw sienna, but the opacity gives it a very unique feel, and sometimes I'm just more in the mood for it than I am for a standard brown selection. Winsor & Newton's manganese brown is the same pigment and hue, but it does granulate more than Schmincke's version. While I do typically love granulating colors, Spinel Brown is a color that I reach for when I want a flat, matte look. Next up is a color that I cannot claim is an essential by any means. It's absolutely a just for fun color, but I use it enough that it is welcome to claim a spot on this palette. Schmincke's Tundra Orange is made from PR233, PBR7, and PY42. That would be Schmincke's Potter's Pink and their 2-pigment raw sienna. It carries a pink granulation that the other light earth browns lack and is particularly nice in landscapes and loose animal portraits. If it's not one that you would get a lot of use from, you could ditch it entirely to add a color somewhere else on the palette that might be lacking. Cough, cough, like my lack of bright oranges or magentas. Dark Ochre PY42 by Szmal is a pretty special hue. While most ochres lean warm and I love them for those golden hues, a cool, light to mid-valued brown is a unique find in watercolors. Dark Ochre is non-granulating and semi-opaque. I feel like it's the perfect color for elk and would lend itself well to a winter landscape. Last up for today, we have another cool brown from Schmincke's super granulation line, Desert Brown, made from PY159, PR108, and PBK11. While this is a somewhat similar hue to our last color, the way that they handle between brush and paper and the way that they look in a wash are completely different. This is one of the newest to me colors on the palette alongside with that forest gray in the last video. And to be honest, it's the one that I'm probably least confident in recommending to other people. It's been tricky trying to figure out how to use this one effectively in actual paintings, but the granulation between the 3 granulating pigments is just really cool to see. Time will tell if this one sticks around in the long run. And if you wanted to swap it out for another similar color, you could sub in something like goethite in its place. There we have it, another set of 12 colors in this top 48 color marathon, showcasing my favorite watercolor colors in 2023. Be sure to subscribe and check back next time for the last 12 colors in this palette as things finish up with our earth reds, earth violets, dark browns, and neutrals. Thank you so much for watching and engaging with this video. Thank you to my amazing patrons, and I will see you all next time. Until then, happy painting.